My wife was petrified when I ran for city council, and justifiably so. And if I do something stupid, it's on the front page of the AJC, and I guess that deserves to be. Oh, good. Hey, everybody! Welcome into the Ben Burnett Show, an Appen Media podcast. My guest today, who I'm very excited to get because we get to talk about things that we never have the opportunity to do. Rebecca Kaple from Fox Sports. Rebecca, welcome in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to ask you, I think you're incredibly interesting for a lot of reasons. And one of the things I beat into the ground here are you pass people every single day that you have no idea what they do for a living, and they have really cool jobs, especially living out here. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you never know. Nobody would look at me and say, she's a sports reporter, especially if they see me with my kids in the grocery store.
Target.
Right.
And so what was funny was I was telling a couple weeks ago when I was talking to Bobby trying to get you to come on, I told Jim Gilvin, the mayor of Alpharetta, who's a huge Braves fan, he goes, "Oh, dude, I've got tons of questions for her."
Good. Bring them on.
And so he's there are a lot of people that, as I started to nail down, and you get some traction, you get some following, and you get more people to come on. And I think that's, you kind of start running out of people just in your Rolodex. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, hey, who can we bring? Because we have fans and subscribers, and like, who wants to have the opportunity? But I think that, so just real quick, tell everybody what you do in a day-to-day life, because I couldn't even begin to do it justice.
Day-to-day life. Well, that depends what season we're in, because, my life goes by different sports seasons.
Yeah, you can start in the fall.
Okay.
When the year really starts.
I'll start in the fall when things get really crazy for me. So football season, I'm a sideline reporter for ACC football games. So for 13 straight weeks, that's my package, they call it. I am a sideline reporter for ACC football. So every weekend, I leave Friday morning on the first flight out.
To insert city here.
I find out the game that I get a week and a half in advance.
Yep.
So any ACC, so it may be Louisville, maybe Charlottesville, Raleigh, Durham has 3 different ACC teams, Miami, Florida State, it doesn't matter, but some sort of ACC town I'm flying to on Friday morning. Friday, when we get there, our crew, it's Wes Durham, who a lot of people are very familiar with.
Go Falcons.
Right, Falcons, for a long time, Georgia Tech.
Very long
so
time.
He does a lot of stuff. And then
he's probably got his own following.
Oh, huge. Well, and his dad was so famous because he was the voice of the Tar Heels, Woody Durham. So Wes Durham is the play-by-play, and James Bates is the analyst, and he is a former Florida Gator. He actually won a national championship with them back in '96 under Spurrier when he was a linebacker. So that's my team, and on Friday we head to whatever the school is, the home team is that we're meeting with, and we meet with all the coaches, the coordinators, and sometimes players at our request, and then we sort of have production meetings, and then Saturday it's game time, and then if I'm lucky, I can get a flight out and come home after the game on Saturday night. And a lot of times it's our entire crew, saying goodbye. Clock hits 0, we say goodbye, we jump in a rental car and we race to the airport and try and make our flight home so we can get back to our families. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and so we go home on Sunday. But
so let me ask you this. This is a total side question.
Okay.
Let's say Wes is in somewhere that's somewhere that's not easy to get to. I know
where you're going with this, and very good, because this is exactly what he deals with every single week. Because he has to get to the Falcons.
And they could be in Oakland.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So what happens is, and he got really lucky this year, he had a lot of pretty manageable flight situations, but right after the game, our college football game, Wes is trying to get to wherever the Falcons are going to be. So if say I'm flying home to Atlanta, he may be on the next flight out to Detroit or wherever it may be. Now, if we're in a town like Charlottesville, which we were there I think twice this year. We love UVA apparently.
How does that work? So everybody understands, at least in the SEC, mm-hmm. CBS gets the first pick.
Right.
And then it goes to, there's several ESPN games, and then it will go to SEC Network. How does that work with the ACC?
So it works the same way, basically. So
ABC gets the 3:30 call.
So yeah, ESPN gets the first few picks, and there may be 7 ACC games on tap that are worth showing on, TV or whatever
You
that
can't
weekend.
say that.
No, I'm serious. And it goes that way. But, ESPN gets a first few picks. Fox Sports gets picks. Raycom is actually who I work for.
Jefferson Pilot.
Yeah, the former Jefferson Pilot. That's who I work for this college football package. And then, of course, in next fall, the ACC network starts, which is owned by ESPN. And my college football package is safe. And I think that they're going to, ESPN, if they're smart, they're going to be looking to hire a lot of people who have been doing ACC football for years and years and years, because they're the ones with the experience with these teams and the coaches and the player personnel and just the faculty and stuff like that. So they have just a lot of insight and knowledge and experience covering them. But yeah, so it goes down the line. There's definitely a pecking order. And sometimes ESPN gets to place a game on hold. So there was one week where Miami...
2 weeks out.
Gosh, yeah.
The 10-day option.
Exactly. And Miami was going to come to Georgia Tech this season. And I was crossing my fingers that was going to be my game. Because I've covered Georgia Tech. I covered them 4 times this year. So my week of research becomes less and less and less as the season goes on, because I already know these teams and the players and stuff like that. But Miami happens to be my husband's alma mater. So
yes.
I know a lot about Miami.
He's not shy about being a Miami fan.
He's definitely not shy. And by extension...
He's got gold chains and the whole nine.
He's got the turnover chain, t-shirt. Oh, I got it for him. Yeah. So I was hoping I was going to get that game. And I was thinking, well, they're both... this sounds bad. They're both kind of losing, these teams. So that gives me a good shot of getting it, because ESPN will take, the Clemsons of the world and stuff like
that. Good fan bases and eyeballs.
Exactly. And what happened was ESPN put a hold on that game too. So we didn't get that game that week. So, but yeah, it works the same way.
So you get the University of Virginia versus Richmond 1AA.
So
or FCS.
Sometimes you do at the beginning of the season, particularly when these schools are playing
Jacksonville State,
cupcake teams and stuff like that. We will get those just by the nature of the fact that the ACC gets to play those teams.
Did you do the? So I'm a huge Samford alum fan, and they played Florida State in one of the first.
Didn't get Florida State this year at all.
Pouring rain.
Yeah,
and they were awful. And I mean, Samford was beating them until there were 2 minutes left, and I was like, I knew we'd lose. It's just how it goes. But for the chance to watch somebody beat Florida State was garbage. But
it's too bad. Well, I love their new head coach. He's, boy comes home. I love that story. He's a nice guy. I interviewed him over the summer at ACC kickoff, and he's really got a vision. I just think it's your first year.
Yeah, and Jimbo did leave a lot left.
Didn't leave. Yeah, exactly. And that's usually how it works with those big programs, is once that head coach piece is out, yeah, you're going to have to restock the shelves.
So then you move. We'll go there, because if we want to get people to quit listening, we'll keep talking about ACC football.
I know, right? I know. Oh man.
And you're a Georgia Bulldog.
I'm a Georgia Bulldog. So
are you still a super fan?
So it's interesting.
Hard to be a fan.
I was born in Michigan. My whole family is from Michigan. So I was raised a Michigan Wolverines fan. So my dad, you can't even be near him on game day, because he's so locked into the Michigan game. And for a lot of years, it's been very disappointing. Yeah, exactly.
Jim Harbaugh, he can choke a game away.
Harbaugh, yeah. So this was kind of the year that we thought Harbaugh was going to take the next step and finally beat Ohio State. And then, of course, he did not.
He did not.
So, I am a Michigan super fan. I will say that, even though I don't get to watch any other teams because I'm always working an ACC game. So I see highlights, I read articles. I was hoping this was the year for Michigan. It was not. But
that's their theme. Next year's our year. It is their theme.
Yeah, right? But that said, I'm proud to be a graduate of the University of Georgia, and I always have a team that's at least winning somewhere. So that's exciting. So right now, Michigan basketball is doing awesome.
Yep.
But I'm proud to be a Georgia Bulldog as well, and I love the success that they've had. It's just been incredible to watch that too.
I think there's a lot of people, especially in North Fulton, that are not isolated from having all that Georgia football love. It certainly doesn't hurt when you're good.
Right.
But I have to tell you, watching, my brother said it best, he's like, the holiday season is not complete any longer until Alabama totally demoralizes them in some way.
Oh, I know. It's so, you know what? And I watch Alabama and I think to myself, I don't know of any other team who can beat Alabama.
Do you think Clemson So
I don't think Clemson beats Alabama.
No. Just
Clemson's next level good too. I mean, they are top notch, but they always have this like one lapse. I feel like whether
they used to call
randomly
it Clemsoning.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't pull the Clemsoning card in a playoff. You pull it against Wake Forest in September.
Oh yeah. Well, I've covered a lot of Wake Forest too.
What do you see? We'll go there for a second. The 4 teams in the playoff. What do you think?
I don't know that anyone beats Alabama. But if I had to pick a team that might be a surprise, I would pick Oklahoma, just because I feel like they're so off the radar, and I don't think they get as much coverage just based on their location in this country.
And the conference.
And the conference that they're in. And that conference that they're in is underrated. That is a tough conference. It is like, when you talk about ACC, you talk about the finesse sort of football. You talk about Big Ten. You think about pounding them in their face and grinding them and running and da-da-da. But when you talk about the Big 12, that is tough. And so I think they mix finesse and hard-nosed football, and I think that's going to be tough to beat.
I think it will be really interesting. What's funny is that I was coming back. I build data centers all around the Southeast. Is what I do for work. And I was coming back a couple weeks ago. It was in October, and it was Notre Dame's off week, and we landed, and I was honestly waiting for my wife to come pick me up at PDK. Mm-hmm. And Brian Kelly and his 2 pilots walk in, and he just sits down next to me and just starts chatting it up. Like, I'd never bother somebody. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, Coach. I always thought you'd be a huge jerk. And he goes, well, you don't play for me.
Right.
But last week, we're coming back from Huntsville. Same whole deal. And we land, and who's sitting in the terminal is Brian Kelly. I was like, dude, I need to give you my number. And he's
following you.
He's great. And I never in my life would have thought, they probably get picked up. Are they part of your ACC contract or not? Never. They always are exempt.
They are.
Somebody will take them.
If it's a home game, it's NBC for sure. Yeah. And then beyond that, of course, someone's taking them.
But I would love to see them get to a place where they're willing to make a full transition and commit to a league. And I don't know that that's possible, but the fact that they don't get that 13th game is just like, if you want to hate on Alabama because they lose in the SEC championship, at least they lost in the SEC championship.
I'm with you.
And Notre Dame, their schedule is good most of the time, but it's not special. It has been in the past, but it's not anymore.
Right.
And the ACC's hamstrung them with the way that schedule rolls, that sometimes you've got 5 games that you got to take, and they may be just driftwood games.
Of course. That's what drives me nuts about Notre Dame. Yeah. And also, BYU's in the same position, just not being in any sort of conference and not being held, accountable to all of the other teams that you're supposed to play year in and year out. And it's tough scheduling teams like that. We actually covered a team that's trying to do the same thing and follow in those schools' footsteps in Liberty University this year. They were played at Virginia. And I remember, Bronco Mendenhall is the coach of BYU. Virginia.
Oh, he was at BYU.
And he was at BYU. So he had conversations with Liberty's head coach about how difficult it was to be a head coach for a team that's not in a conference and trying to move and play these big time teams and be at that elite level. And he said, I don't envy the position you're in, because this is going to be really, really hard. And you know what? Last week, I'm sitting there with my Hawks crew, and I get a text from my football friends, and they're like, the head coach just retired at Liberty. And I knew it, because when we had a conversation with him, he tried to be very political and very upbeat, and I commend him for that. But I asked him about his conversations with Bronco Mendenhall about how the challenge would be.
You knew the truth.
Yeah, and he, he played it off, and then all of a sudden he retired. So it's tough.
So I think that, and nobody's going to care about this, but when Liberty decided to jump from FCS, they were at such a tremendous advantage from a resources perspective when they were in 1AA because they were paying full cost of attendance scholarships, and nobody else in 1AA could even get close.
And their facilities are ridiculous. The school makes a ton of money. They just...
Yeah. They have online education programs.
Yeah.
Like, they've really harnessed that brand, for however you feel about them, for better or for worse. And they've got plenty of ups and they got plenty of downside. But they don't lack in resources.
Right.
But nobody in the Power Five lacks in resources. And so there's some, but it's not.
Yeah,
you're not going to go toe to toe. I don't care how many online MBAs you give away.
Right.
You're not going toe to toe with Auburn.
No. In fact, you talk to a lot of coaches in the ACC, and they feel they can't go toe to toe with Clemson.
Yeah, and they can't.
And they can't. And that's just the difference.
And they've got, but the thing that I'll give Clemson over everybody else in that conference is that they could be 8-4. That stadium has 80,000 people in it. They care. It's the game in town. They've got great fans. It's dirt cheap. If Nick Saban was at Clemson, I think they would be even better.
Oh yeah, Saban.
Well, I think that they would be better at Clemson than they are at Alabama because those fans don't have insane expectations. They're probably getting there.
I think at this point, yeah, they're starting to come around.
But they also realize that they have a head coach who's got a shot clock. He's going to leave.
I don't know, where would he go? At this point, he has taken that program.
Oh yeah.
To such an elite level. Where do you want to go from there? And
where did he go to? Where did he go to college?
Paid more. You get paid more.
Where did he go to school?
Dabo? Where did he go to school?
Alabama.
Yeah. Well, too bad Saban's there.
Well, Saban's not getting any younger. He doesn't look like it, but I would be hard pressed to think that there's a world where you turn that job down. Growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, that's just
maybe way down the line.
I think you'll see it in 10 years.
Okay.
But we'll
circle back.
Well, yeah, we'll come back in 10 years.
Right.
I told you so.
Yeah.
But I think he's the best. He's the best salesperson, Dabo.
Oh, for sure. He is definitely a likable character.
But he took that contract when he negotiated it with Terry Don Phillips, the old athletic director at Clemson, said, make me the least paid coach in the conference and give me an incentive package to be the highest paid coach in the country. And he said, really? He's like, that's all I need. Just give me an opportunity. I was like, how do you not root for that guy? He's like, I'll bet on myself every day.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's go to the Hawks.
Okay.
On an 82-game schedule, how many games are you on the sidelines for?
Well, I work about half. And a part of that is because
football
baseball through the fall. But actually, when baseball starts, I work every single game because Jerome Jurinovich, who also lives in this area.
Does he?
Yes, he's practically my neighbor. He is the host of the pre and post game show, so Hawks Live, except when I'm there and he needs a day off, which is typically a back-to-back or something like that. So I'm on the sidelines for a good chunk of them, but I also host the pre and post game show on some other days.
I love the Hawks. If I could bond money and move them out here, I don't think they're in the best situation to be successful. And I realize Atlanta's going to fight that kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
But if you put them at Avalon,
oh my gosh, not anymore. They put a gazillion dollars into State Farm Arena, so they're not going anywhere.
But and you'd never have the political capital out here to pull something like that off. But when you go to Oklahoma City and you go to some of these like smaller towns, I have no doubt if Birmingham, Alabama had a team, it'd be full every night.
Probably.
They're just
because there's nothing else going on.
There's nothing else going on there, and people out here in a surprising bit watch basketball.
Yeah.
They watch the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't ever, they may not watch the Hawks, but I watch somebody every night. And I kind of just developed that. I think it's a great product. The NBA is, if you haven't gone down there since they've redone the arena,
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
It is. It's not even recognizable, to be honest with you. From last year to this year, Phillips to State Farm, it's so different, and the food and just the atmosphere and just what's offered to fans, it's really cool.
So, when you go on the road quite a bit.
So I try not to go on the road that much, to be honest with you, just because I do have 3-year-old twins.
Oh yeah.
And so, and we have another sideline reporter, Andre Aldridge, who's very good, and he doesn't have kids. So he loves going on the road.
He loves going to Los Angeles.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I love going on the road. You fly private with the team. You stay in 5-star hotels. It is awesome.
They treat you like gold, but it's
Absolutely.
But it's not home.
But it's not home. And, it's if I were 22 years old, I would travel with the Hawks every single place that they go. But I'm not that anymore. I have children. I have a family, commitments back here. And so, they work with me, which is great. It's a great company.
How do you feel about the rebuild? Because you see it as much as anybody.
Yeah, no, it's a struggle to cover it at the same and to watch it as a fan, right? But at the same time, that every single game that passes and every single game that these young players are involved in, and whether it's a last second shot that they miss and they lose or they make and they win, that is experience that is building them towards the future of something that can be awesome. And we've seen it. We've seen Philly do it. Yep. And now we have their coach who's leading the Hawks through it right now, Lloyd Pierce, who's fantastic. So I think that while in the immediate sense, it's very frustrating and it's hard, and we're all very impatient, especially in today's world. Everything's available at the touch of a finger. I think that down the line, it's going to be exciting for the Hawks, and they're on that path. Travis Schlenk, the GM, is on that path.
I'm going to ask you a real question.
Okay.
How do you prepare like a pro every single day when they're 15th in the conference?
You don't look at that. You don't look at that.
Yeah, but you can't.
You don't look at that because the players, the coaches, and gosh, Bob Rathbun, the voice of
long time.
Yeah, I mean, he knows everything, and he is such a professional, and he's witty about it, and even through the challenges, he can laugh stuff off. And I just follow that example because he knows what he's talking about. He has been there through it all. He's seen ups, he's seen downs. He saw a 60-win season a couple of years ago. He's been through a lot of coaches. So you still prepare because guess what? You're a fan, right? You're going to turn on the game and you want to see good basketball. These guys may not win every game, but they're putting on a show, and it's a fight every single game. It's a battle.
Yeah, they don't quit.
They don't quit.
And they have been beaten bad at certain points, and they don't quit.
Well, and you look at them, who they're playing. And, they're playing a bunch of teams that have a lot of experience, and we're in the middle of a rebuild. So the Hawks have, 3 first-round draft picks and 3 rookies that have a lot of times been in the starting lineup together, and that's unheard of.
What do you? How long do you think that takes? You think it's next year? You think it's the following year when they get in place for that 8th spot?
I think not next year. I think maybe probably 3 years from now.
Why can't we get an A-list free agent?
Okay, this is a great question. One that I've asked many times too.
You keep asking?
My pro athlete,
because they live here in the off
exactly.
season.
Okay, so I have asked Dominique Wilkins this. I have asked Brian Jordan, who I work with in the Braves broadcast. And Brian Jordan is actually very funny. He says to me, wives and girlfriends won't let their husbands and stuff move to Atlanta because it's too much of a party town. Now, I don't know this because
you live in the mean streets of Milton.
I live in the mean streets of Milton, and obviously I'm not out partying at all. Yeah. I'm happy to get to bed by 9, and that's totally fine with me. But
they're going to Milwaukee.
Yeah, apparently, right. Apparently they are, there's too much going on here in Atlanta that people don't want their man moving here.
So that you're telling me that's
what I'm saying. That's the answer I've gotten.
And you hear that because
from multiple athletes.
But it's literally just the Hawks, the Falcons. They can lure free agent talent. Yeah. The Braves can lure free agent talent.
The Braves are doing what the Hawks are doing as well, though. Think about it. They just got really lucky that their talent ended up being able to deliver this year way earlier than expected.
How about, and this is where we may should have started here, but I'm glad we didn't. I had more fun watching the Braves last season than I've had watching them in a decade.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was alone. And they've made the playoffs here and there.
Right.
But the last night that I felt invested in the Braves was the night we got screwed with the infield fly in the playoffs in 2011 when everybody threw all the stuff on the field. That was honestly a life-changing night for me because I was like, it's just never going to happen.
Oh gosh.
What do you see for them moving forward? We obviously signed a huge free agent third baseman in the last month. What do you think the pieces are? Do you think that we'll be able to continue building on last year? It was fun, but when we got to the playoffs, when you start looking at starting pitching, it's not a secret.
The starting pitching is where it's at. And right now, the Braves are in Vegas for winter meetings and having discussions with other teams as we speak to try and shore up that starting rotation, because I think everyone who's a baseball fan knows, and even if you're not a baseball fan, having quality starting pitching can literally win your season. And gosh, I mean, the Braves I want to say they got lucky because there were certain people that they brought on that outperformed what they expected this past season.
I don't think that's controversial.
No, yeah, I don't think so either. And I just, it was so fun to watch, like you said. It was fun to watch this team, but it was fun because there was this nice balance of these young guys like Ozzy Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. And the fun that those guys had together. I mean, they were like little best friends. And then you have, the veterans who we've watched through the years. I mean, you've got in the outfield Ender Inciarte and, Nick Markakis, the local kid from Woodstock, who's fun to follow, and both winning Gold Gloves this past season. But I think they have a nice mix of veteran leadership and youth, and that all sort of came together. And you know what it is? It starts, I think, with Brian Snitker. He does not get enough credit, although he did this year because he won NL Manager of the Year.
Yeah, he got it this year.
He got some credit.
I mean, it was no secret that they had tried to move him out the door.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
were going to.
He has a knack for keeping things loose and positive, and he's a player's manager. And I think there's something to be said for that, especially in baseball, because it is such a grind. There are so many games. And at the beginning of the season, you're like, I'm doing these post-game shows and these pre-game shows, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what game are we on? And does this really matter? They just lost or they just won. Is this going to matter?
I should have saved my how do you bring your A game every night? Do you like it better at the Battery, or do you like it better when you're in a studio? You
know what? I like it better at the Battery because you
feel like it's real.
Yeah, you're there and you can play off of the excitement and just the fireworks and the band and the fans, and win or lose, those fans, they show up and they're excited to be there and they're having a great time with their families, and I feed off of that energy. And I think Brian Jordan and Nick Green and my other analysts do too, Jeff Francoeur.
Can you Jeff is a year younger than me. We went to Parkview together. He is, I'd tell anybody this, he is literally the exact same person.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. Not better than anybody. If you come talk to him, just be prepared.
Yes.
His mom was my 7th grade math teacher.
No.
And so I followed him. I mean, obviously just being, friends and through minor leagues, and you'd stop him. I'd see him when we were living in Birmingham. We'd go see him on the road, and he was, but he treats people with such respect. I think that's something that the Braves really look for. He's never going to embarrass you. Never.
No, he's just he's a kind of a big kid. He's a goofball, but it's fun, and like you said, he's respectful to everyone. And I think the first time that I worked with him, our show was over and we were like, let's go get some food. We went to Antico Pizza in the Battery. He bought 2 pizzas. And I was like, dude, how many more people are coming to lunch? And he goes, oh, no. This one's for me. And this one's for you. I was like, what are you talking about? And so we start eating and I'm watching him. He pounded that entire pizza. And I was amazed. I was like, yep, this guy, he's a winner.
I haven't talked to him in years, but he's a good dude. Anytime I run into him anywhere, he always stops to say hey. Good, just a solid guy. What do you how do you, is that grind just like every day? Do you just pray for an off day?
You do.
You pray for an off day and then a rain delay the next day?
Oh, no, you never pray for a rain delay. No.
What about a rain out?
No, because you're already there. So just let's get it over with. Unless they're just going to make you sit there. I mean, this happens to me all the time, I feel like. Maybe it's just I've internalized it. But I feel like every time I'm working a Braves game, there's some sort of rain delay or there's extra innings. And Braves games are very, very long already.
Oh, yeah.
And while we all love free baseball, if you're there to work...
You don't love free baseball anymore?
You're just sitting there and you're sitting there and you're sitting there and you're waiting and you don't know, you're wondering when this game's going to end. So you can because when fans are done, they're on their way home. I'm still sitting there doing a post-game show. So we're all sitting there trying to put on some quality content.
As you look at when the Battery came up, I think everybody had this question about parking.
Yeah.
And it remains, it's the one down. I think it's the part that people like the least about the stadium. And the stadium's awesome. Mm-hmm. The whole experience is great.
Yeah.
Where do you guys park?
So media parks in a certain deck. So the Delta deck.
So you're okay, because I pass that all the time across from the restaurants and stuff.
They park in the Delta deck, and they also have a lot across the street for overflow at the Boys and Girls Club.
Because I was like, there's no way they're sticking you guys over by the Galleria.
Well, I mean, they're not, but... I can't speak for where all media parks, but I know the immediate broadcast crew has pretty decent parking.
I can imagine they take good care of you.
Yeah.
Well, tell me this: you were a very supportive spouse in the over the course of the last year and a half. How on earth? So people know, your husband decided that he was going to enter the life of public service.
That's right.
As a spouse, what was your first reaction?
Gosh, my first reaction. Well, I guess my first reaction was that I was, and this is the truth, proud that there are people out there who want to do that, because I am not someone who I don't think would ever run for office. And it's just not something. I've tried to find other ways to help people. But my husband, really and he had talked with me about, I've always known he's been very interested in politics. He's a political science major.
I didn't know that.
Political science and broadcasting, and communication. So he double majored. And so he has such knowledge. And I don't know anybody else who records every single Sunday morning news program on all of the networks and then watches them back for fun. At night. Yes. And that is what he has always done for as long as I've known him. And so he's just has a thirst for what's going on. He has knowledge for what's going on beyond what I think most people can say that they do, because who really sits there and watches those programs? I don't. I try to find time to watch a game somewhere, But I was excited, and I was also scared because he had to quit his job in order to do it. And, while I work Hawks and Braves and college football,
that's a big risk.
That's a big risk, because I'm a sports reporter who, this is, it's not a staff job. It's a free, you're all on-air talent for Fox Sports is basically freelance. Yeah. So this is not something that I ever thought that, he really, really had this drive to do it. And we had to talk about, is it going to be worth, you're going to quit your job. You were the main anchor at CBS News in Atlanta for the morning and noon newscast. Can you quit your job and do this? And how are we going to put food on the table at the same time? Yeah. So, it was exciting, and then it was terrifying all at the same time.
I think that is, my wife was petrified when I ran for city council. Right. And justifiably so, because you don't know the number of people who know what it's like to even put your name on a ballot. I mean, they're just not everywhere. Right. And it's, I was like, it's city council, Lindsay, and it's not U.S. Senate. Like, right. Yeah, there's different levels, but you don't know. You're a candidate, and you're putting yourself out there. You're putting your family out there. Oh, yeah, and if I do something stupid, it's on the front page of the AJC. Absolutely. And I guess that deserves to be, but it's really interesting. He's become a good friend. I really appreciate anybody who's willing. And by the way, I get accused of being a partisan hack. He's a Democrat. Well, yeah. But he's a good guy, and there's more people. I know he keeps up with what goes on here. I know he keeps up with all the local stuff. And I appreciate anybody that chooses to be involved that'll go do it, because it's very easy to watch the news and realize that there's all these people who live in this funhouse mirror complex. And like, your husband is such a decent guy.
Well, yeah, I think so.
I have incredible disagreements with him on all sorts of things, but he's a good dude. Like,
right. And I think that's interesting, because I think that is what politics really is. I feel like you have different issues and different beliefs on certain things, but at the end of the day, everyone can sit down and have dinner.
And when you go up there to Washington and you go into these folks' office, I can just tell you, I spend time for work with the Senate Appropriations Chairman and the Senate Appropriations Vice Chairman, who is Richard Shelby from Alabama and Patrick Leahy from Vermont. They do not agree on anything.
Right.
They are best friends.
Of course. Probably roommates. I mean,
and that was fun. I was reading a couple weeks ago about how they had this U.S. Senate, like it was more or less a dormitory with Chuck Schumer and a bunch of other people. And I was like, that has to be the stories that those guys can tell.
But they're friends, because they all are fighting for something that they believe in together. And it's rare that you can find someone who's willing to put, like you did, put yourself out there and just accept that responsibility and try and make it happen.
It's fun. But I can tell you the other thing that people miss all the time are that, in spite of the polarizing issues that people like to talk about on TV, politicians care about bringing jobs home, putting a shovel in the ground, and making sure that their workforce is employed.
Of course.
And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, because I have to work with all of them.
Of course.
And I think that gets missed in... It's just not... When you look, I get that there's... the president is polarizing and says all sorts of crazy shit on Twitter, but it doesn't change the fact that there's decent people everywhere. And I appreciate, that was the thing. I sat there, behind closed doors, was like, hey man, what do you think about doing this? It was like, he's like, hey, would you publicly support me? And I was like, I don't know about that, but I'll privately feed you good information. I was like, I don't know if I could do that, but nobody walks into the ballot box with me if you make it to the general.
Right.
And then I was like, hey, would you send my kids to the Naval Academy? But he's a good guy. I hope he chooses to come back in some form or fashion. Running for Congress is an awfully big step. Last question for you before I go. I know you were a TV anchor in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Is the West Coast the best coast?
I don't want to tick off everyone around here. In certain ways, I will say yes.
That was very political.
I will say, but there are obviously things that the East Coast has to offer that the West Coast does not. But Bobby and I, that was where we got married. It's where we were both in competition with each other. He was a sportscaster as well at CBS in Los Angeles, and I was at KTLA. And so we were, standing beside each other as the Kings won the Stanley Cup for the first time, and reporting on really cool stuff like that, and just the everyday saga of the Lakers and the Clippers and Dodgers and you name it. But it was really fun. Bobby loves it here more. And I think...
I do too, but I sure love to go out there.
Oh, it's great to visit, as he will say. Just like New York. Great place to visit, not a great place to live.
I won't even give New York that.
Right. Well, the weather is amazing.
It is amazing.
There's a lot to do at your fingertips, whether you're trying to go wine tasting in Napa or, to Hawaii or even skiing in Utah. It's all right there. The traffic. Ugh. It's way worse than Atlanta.
You laugh when people talk about traffic here. Oh my
goodness, yeah. And I complain about the traffic here. And then as I'm sitting in my car getting angry, I think this could be worse.
I could be on the 405.
I could be stuck on the 405 trying to get to El Segundo to interview Kobe, and I'm not going to make it on time. Yeah. So it could be worse, but there's perks out there for sure.
I think that one of the things that's so interesting, just reading your biography, and you have to go back to the Hawks people when you get done today, and you need to take care of that bio. Like, she went to Georgia. She's a reporter in LA. I was like, I could have written a better biography in 5 minutes and only ever said 25 words to you before today.
Oh my gosh. I don't know who's reading the bio. I didn't even know it was up there. So
You're the first person that I did any research on to talk to, and I got 4 lines worth of stuff.
Oh man, I'm all over the internet. You just have to Google me. You can watch every report I've done, I'm sure.
I don't have time for that.
I know.
I appreciate it. Rebecca Kaple, thanks for stopping by. We'll do it again soon. I hope to put you in the rotation.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Have a great day, everybody.